Thank you guys for tuning in to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast. I'm your host, Shikirah Johnson. I also have a co-host with me today, and he's going to introduce himself.
My name is Byron Davis, IT professional for about 6 or 7 years, and happy to be here.
Yeah, he will be co-hosting with me for hopefully the long run with the podcast. We like to bring different topics. We talk about tech news and tips and everything on how to get into your career. And so we were just talking about AI in the previous episode. A question that's come to mind is, how can AI be socially conscious, or should it even be socially conscious? So we're going to talk about that in today's episode. I want to get into like a couple of opinionated thoughts before we really see a couple of things. We've looked up how AI can have like a job bias since it's utilizing data, large language models. That can have bias with it. We looked at a couple of things where when you're doing your job search and you apply to a job with your resume, it's going through a ATS, which is a automated tracking service, and that filters out whether you make it to a real person. In all honesty, it's pretty hard to make it to a real person when you go by your traditional learning of how to make a resume. When we go through a resume and it's all cute and artsy, it typically doesn't make it through because the computer has a hard time reading that information. If you look up a easily readable resume, it has like the simplest format. You got your name at the top, phone number or email, or however they need to contact you. And then you go through your experience, certifications, education. Keep it simple. If there's nothing that matches in that job description on your resume, you get sent out, whether you were qualified or sometimes it takes key terms. And if you don't have those key terms on your resume, it just kind of sends you away. And then you get the email where it's like, we're sorry to inform you that we have not chosen to pick you, basically. It's a process that we all have to kind of learn if you really do want to get a job. Like I've talked about this before in some of my podcasts where the job description is basically your key, your key on your resume. Certain words they're taking, and if they apply to you, you can use them. That's my opinion on that. I can let Byron give you his opinion. But if there are certain things that apply to you that is in the job description, you kind of want to use those exact terms so that way your resume can get to a real person. But with AI being, as we may want it to be more socially conscious, like how would that happen? Information that it may be receiving is gonna have an innate bias. I'm gonna include the YouTube video that we had pulled this from to kind of give a better understanding of it. And I'll put it in the show notes. But it was mentioning how, I think, what was the name of a person, how sometimes it could be the best candidate can be a person named Jared that played lacrosse or something.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was just like with that, it's like a very clear distinction that maybe somebody that has my name is Shikirah, okay? It's nowhere close to a Jared. So it's just like the bias is showing, it's leaning towards, I will say, a typical white male perspective of it. And that may not always be correct. And we have to figure out how to get more diverse data that can actually implicate different candidates and be able to hopefully not filter you out by your name. So yeah, I'm gonna let Byron get the floor to kind of express his opinions on this. We'll kind of dive deeper more into AI being socially conscious.
Yeah, thank you. And from my perspective for AI, when it comes to like, I guess more so from the stance of you were taking about like pre-employment screenings, using AI software, AI management software in order to like cull their job pool or their applicant pool.
Mm.
Because if we look at the way that like this process has evolved over time, like typically people do job applications and your mom will tell you to call in and check on your application and check to see the status of it. Versus today, people are more familiar with Indeed or Monster.com or LinkedIn jobs, for example. And the quick apply, easy apply settings, everything's already like cached, your resume and everything, and it goes straight to job poster. So if I'm a job poster and I get 10,000 applications for a role that's pretty sought after and in demand for the skills it's aligned with, it's going to be kind of unrealistic for me to review 10,000 job applications from different applicants. So I definitely am for the use of the technology in order to further optimize processes like this. But it's when, as Shai said, comes back to uh, if it's giving the people that are subject to the technology the consideration that the job poster might actually give if they were to review the application manually versus the software screening it for them on their behalf. And so that's where the training of these models and algorithms come into play, which we'll touch on in future episodes. So stay tuned. But those are important because it provides that human factor that's missing from this product that's essentially supposed to mimic human intelligence. And so,
Ooh.
go ahead.
Okay, so when I was learning in school back in high school, they
Hmm.
taught us that like a recruiter will take about 30 seconds to look at your resume or it goes in the trash. Like if it's not sparking an interest within those like 30 seconds, or maybe it was even 3 seconds, but they just toss it in the trash. AI is those systems that are pre-screening are meant to do basically exactly that. If it doesn't catch
Yeah,
those key things within, honestly, it may take AI less than a second to even catch it. But if it's not catching that information, it'll toss it.
agreed. And the thing with that is, I think this goes into play on the YouTube video about how
Mm-hmm.
some people, like for example, in my community back home in Mississippi, there's not as much of technical advancement or spaces or institutions where stuff like this is talked about unless you're going to like college or something. Um, and so, for example, like with the pre-screening for employment using the AI systems. I think in the video it actually goes into a gentleman who actually has like a workforce employment agency where he helps people get jobs and learn soft skills and stuff like that. And one of his contentions about the AI pre-screening systems is that it's something that you can't prepare the applicants for. Like you let them know about it, and you only the only rhyme or reason that you have to combat it is to just style your resume in a way that uses said keywords or hot words so it can be picked up on whatever AI system. But even that isn't as practical as we would like it to be because we're talking about in general just an AI system versus a pre-screening management system that's already tailored to a specific company for their specific needs and interests that align with their business needs. And so, what may work for one system may not work for another system. And so I feel like that's where it comes into play of um, people being on the opposite side of it because it's like you're not given the same um, consideration or the same review as someone who's actually taking the active time to put eyes on your resume, read through it, and get to know you as an individual from um, the work experience and essentially the reputation that you've packaged together and presented on a one sheet resume. Like you already have not as much time or representation to get out in front of, said person that listed the job. But I feel like AI gives you less of a voice, but more scale, because with the amount of people that are able to apply to a role now versus back in the day before was even a thing and people were manually reviewing resumes, the job pool is a lot smaller. The bias from recruiters was a lot more unchecked, I would say. A company could have, a budget for a new employee, and rules and characteristics they would like an ideal employee to have, but that didn't always necessarily that wasn't always necessarily represented by the choice that said recruiter would make. So I feel like it works in both tandem, for and against both parties being the recruiter and the applicant. It takes out the personal factor, or value that was presented before with, you know, this resume is me as a person. This is a representation of what I've done. This is a representation of my goals. This is a representation um, of just me in general. And with AI now being the person that's screening and reviewing and responding to emails, because it doesn't just say, oh yeah, you're not a good applicant on the back end. It can send you an email. It can contact you if you get accepted. It can send you a follow-up email scheduling the next appointment. Like it takes out, like, it's more to it than just the confirm or deny process. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's kind of part of what I want people to really highlight. Like the process as a whole, and um not just the negative implications of, oh well, my resume may have not even, it doesn't even matter for me to apply. What's the one in a million chance that AI is going to approve my resume? Like, look at it from the entirety of the process of, you submit an application online to a job portal, and someone may or may not see. You'll get a follow-up notification letting you know, for example, on indeed.com. It'll let you know, hey, someone's viewing your application. Now, whether that's a pre-screening software or an actual person, that's, we'll never know. Um, but it's definitely something that I feel like is allowing more people to have a chance versus just this core group of people that, we've cut off applications for after a certain period of time. But it's just a way to do what we were already doing, just smarter at the core of it,
And a lot faster.
and
Like being
a
able,
lot
yeah,
faster.
yeah, being able to apply to pretty much anything. Like on LinkedIn, the easily apply, it takes your profile that you already set up and puts it in the
Mm-hmm.
application pretty much. I do want to talk about the real examples of, like, do you remember your job search process? Like when you were looking for a job, like how many you applied to, not an example number, but to
Ooh,
going through and applying to them, and then having the phone interview for people who are really looking to get into the tech industry. The phone conversation, the moment you are on a call with a recruiter, that is an interview.
mm-hmm.
Like they are literally screening you. So make sure you're prepared and respectful. That's one thing. Prepared and respectful.
Would you like me to touch on like my real world experience of the job
Yes, I
search?
do. Yeah, I do want to hear how you handled your job search and like what you did throughout the process.
So at a previous place of employment, um, I had decided that it was time for me to, have a change of pace, essentially. And so, I did what anyone would do. I would start looking, um, whether that's LinkedIn, Monster, Dice for tech jobs. If you're into tech jobs specifically, dice.com is a good one. Um, and yeah, so that, for example, I would apply to jobs in the likeness of what I was already doing. And like Shah said, the easy apply option was definitely what I did at a minimum, like at a minimum. Most jobs, um, most jobs that some would say are actually worth it will make you like make a separate like account on the job's own portal with their
Yeah,
own managed systems. And then you have to check up on your resume throughout the process. And there's like a waiting period of, for someone to even look at said application. And this is just for one job, for one application, for one company. Right. Like the
I did
easy apply
the
is like the way to go,
yeah. I just
but
if I want to throw my name in the hat, not if I was super serious about it. In all honesty, that's when I did easily
mhm.
apply.
With the easy apply thing, it's like that's what I would do at a minimum. But when
Mhm.
it came to actually trying to like feel, I don't know, I feel like the level of work that's put into the process lets people feel like they've accomplished or like done something. Because it's like if you were to get a job if you were to get an interview from an easy apply versus getting an interview from just regular applying, like it would feel surreal because all you did was just press a button versus actually answering questions and taking a personality test and what would you do in this scenario. And all of these were all things that encompassed my job search of 8 months because during the time of me actually searching I was still employed, but it was just a grueling process of day in, day out, being consistent, putting in, 10, 20 applications a day, which is how you'll get people that, have crazy numbers. Well, I'll put in 200 applications and I haven't gotten one interview. Um, AI has, probably has something to do with it. And you'll definitely know when AI has something to do with it when you get instantly denied. Either the
Yeah.
job's closed or it's still open and you get instantly denied. And it's something that you're cognizant of, but I didn't let it deter me in applying for positions. Um, and it actually makes me wonder, should I go back and ask my recruiter for the current job I had, like, hey, did y'all use AI for to screen me? Um, but it's definitely something that like you can't let it I definitely feel like a lot of people feel like it's a lot more negative because it's like, oh, deny. Like I'm not, seeing any I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor of applying and people might lose the will to apply because it's, this consistent thing. But I would rather have a deny than just a I haven't heard back at all. And it just goes to the ether and then the position's closed. So I feel like from my experience, it was a little bit of both sides of having those people that, oh, well, on paper or from, whatever back end process that LinkedIn has, seems like you'd be a good fit. You do get a lot of those too on LinkedIn. People just reaching out to you like, hey, your resume looks amazing. And
Hmm.
it's like, what are the chances in a million that you found my page and you just started looking at my resume just randomly? Like they have some sort of software to aggregate potential candidates for recruiters in order for them to easily be able to like outreach and fill a role in a sufficient amount of time. And that is still happening to this day. I still get messages from people saying, you'd be great. And they couldn't tell me what I would be great for. It's just, oh, I
Right.
popped up and they'd reach out to me. And so it's like, it's different because it's people that would normally not be reaching out to you for opportunities that you may or may not even be interested in. So it works in a different way. I feel like that, someone who wouldn't be getting that same level of like attention or like, hey, we thought that you'd be great. I never thought that I would be great for ad tech, and here I am. Like I didn't even know it existed before last year, and here I am. So thanks, AI.
Like I do see when you mentioned recruiters reaching out for positions that you may or may not be interested in, or things that may not even be relevant to, I guess, your current path that you're taking.
Mhm,
Like I know I use LinkedIn a lot when it came to like my job search. And it's mainly
mhm,
due to I'm more of a people person. it's easier for me to interact with people as I'm emphasizing that because before
Hmm.
before I really understood the power of LinkedIn, I was definitely going to these sites like Monster, Indeed, Dice, Tech Systems. It's like for contracting and stuff like that. Like I was really going to these sites that had job postings. Shoot, Career Builder. I would say be careful with Career Builder because you just put in your
Hmm.
resume and you can get a lot of scam jobs. You
A
can get a
lot
lot
of
of
scam
scam jobs.
jobs.
And you got to be able to, differentiate what's a real job and what's not. And that's when I understood that ATS system where it's like, okay, there are certain jobs that are, going like I'm going through because they're the keywords are on my resume.
Hmm.
And I would get the calls with the recruiters after that point, and I would just be like, this is not the direction I'm trying to go in. So like what's really being pulled here? That was my job search process. And then it's a lot of times where once I got through the door and I was told I'm the best candidate, then it came down to, oh, you don't have this degree, you don't have this, and that. And it's just like, I have the experience that you were looking for. I was able to answer all the questions that you needed. I passed whatever test you put me through, but you held me back because I didn't have a bachelor's at that moment. And
Hmm.
to me, it was just like, okay, I didn't go through this. I didn't go through and quote unquote beat the system to get here in front of a person who has their own bias. So it was a lot of, it was definitely a lot of trial and error through the job process where I'm like, okay, how can I do this? Like I went through after my little hiatus from school, after financial aid situations were corrected, went back to school, got my bachelor's. Well, during this whole time, I was working, but I also got that job through networking with people. So I'm going to heavily stress like if you're a person literally applying to jobs 200 times a day, take a step back and go to a networking event. It'll be a lot helpful to get in front of people in the industry that you're looking to join. If you're like Byron said, if you're getting that automatic decline or deny from a position, it's typically AI and you just didn't go through this get to an actual recruiter. It's pretty hard to continue to apply once you kind of had a lot of those denials. And what'll make it a lot better, go through a person, like go to events, go meet people, express your interests. If anything, be willing to learn as well. That'll help you a lot. I know we're talking about AI being like socially conscious, but I do want to make sure that you guys know that if you take the time to network in those ways, it'll be a lot easier because that way you're bypassing the system and you're getting a good reference from a person, hopefully.
The same way that we want you all to understand if AI should be socially conscious or how we can be socially conscious, we would like you all to be socially conscious of AI and how to be
Mm-hmm.
able to have it work in your favor or work around it if you can. And that's kind of some of the stuff that Shah was describing it.
Yeah, is no matter what, a lot of jobs, unless you are going to a mom and pop shop that is probably not set up their systems, are utilizing an ATS because it's, as Byron said, it's typically so many applicants where you cannot view them all. The video we watched was talking about how we're in the great resignation and there are also plenty of jobs available but not enough people getting hired in them, and it's also because of those ATS systems. There's a lot of great candidates out in the playing field. Not everybody gets through the door based on, I would say, the words that are on their resume are not being read, or at least they don't match. Because a system will do what you tell it to do. That's really what it all is, what it comes down to. I am on the side of AI should be socially conscious. I do not agree with like AI systems having certain biases, like a certain bias that can deter worthy candidates from a position, I really have to go back and and add stuff from that video because there is no way a a candidate named Jared that plays lacrosse should be the standard. There is no way for that.
My only thing with that is that we're only talking about AI in a sense of like employment and
Mm-hmm.
how companies use it. But if we open it up to be like a more holistic narrative, with it being conscious, like, what's to stop AI from, an AI model from running for government or like holding a
Mm-hmm.
position of power? If they're able to mimic human intelligence, like at that point, what would keep them from, you know, being, I'm not gonna say deemed as human, but like what would separate them from us in a way? And
Right.
I feel like that's more of a theoretical, like like a critical theory kind of question.
It
But
would like
but
we
but I
gotta
feel like
talk
that
about
also
robots.
covers the extremes. Yeah, we got to talk about robots exactly. Like I feel like that covers the extremes of like what people generally would take AI to, though. But it's not
Mhm.
really extreme when you think about what exactly that means in a practical sense. Like my car driving me from my place to work. It sounds like a robot.
Mhm.
Like it knowing that I'm the one driving it and automatically adjusting the the seat, the seat height, the temperature in the car, and my favorite playlist as soon as I sit down in the car. Like the car is sentient at that point. Like I feel like so it just opens up a wormhole of other things, and I'm all for wormhole.
I do think the wormhole will lead to like once machines become socially or self, not even socially, become self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
In the last article we had with Tech Targets about what is AI, it mentioned how like the last step or the can't even say last because who knows like the extent of where it'll go. But machines are not particularly self-aware entirely yet. And that's where we talk about the scary part where let me see what it was exactly because I do want to make sure I get it right because self-aware you could argue that Teslas are self-aware as into like when they see signs on the road they automatically stop or when they see a car in front
Mm-hmm.
of them and you're going at a certain speed they slow down.
Mm-hmm. And so what's crazy about that is you say robots aren't self-aware, and then I show you a video of an Amazon warehouse with robots moving boxes, and you're like, "What?" Like, I'm not talking like on wheels rolling, or I'm talking walking, like bumping into stuff and being like, "Oh," and then correcting itself, and then taking it where it's supposed to go. 100,000 robots. I think it made the news like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But we'll add that to the show notes, and that'll be our precursor for the next
Yeah.
episode because we got to talk about robots and we talk about AI. Like we got to, and the fact that we're able to, but it's like actually being used today, I feel like is just a testament of how far we've come in terms of advancement.
Mm-hmm. Is what is it? What's that movie? There's a movie with Will Smith. Is it called Robots? It cannot be
iRobot,
called Robots. Is
it's
it?
iRobot.
Oh, okay. So that was like that dystopian film where it's
Yes,
like robots taking over. And it's like, is this going to happen?
and then he met Robot Him. Like, oh man, yeah, it was crazy. But that's the
Like,
point that I guess we're making though. Like when
mm-hmm.
he fought Robot Him, there was really no difference between who was who at that point. Like the AI was matching his movements, his personality, his mannerisms, everything. And it was like the only thing that I guess that's kind of what you're saying. Like the definition of them being self aware is them knowing that they're not human.
Oh, okay. Do you know of like the robot woman like Sophia, the one who like goes around advocating for
Yeah, and they interview her.
like
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, we
Like
got it. Yeah, Sophia.
like I remember that because I had recently watched a YouTube video about these guys and they did like a dating type of thing with Sophia and she picked at
Hmm.
the end and it was like how can how can this robot for one go through all these quote unquote like dating is supposed to be an emotional type of situation. So she was like analyzing each of the guys, rating them on attractiveness, and then just also which one spoke to her better. So it's just, I want to understand the technologies behind all of it because she was also, I would say, this could be being self aware,
Hmm.
like understanding, I guess, what she likes because she understood what she didn't like when there was a YouTuber on there who was talking very fast and like kind of overloading her process. She understood she didn't like that. She picked a person. So I don't know. Being able to see that was crazy. It was, I gotta find the video, I'll send it to you. But yeah, we definitely gotta talk about robots. It's definitely going down the wormhole.
Definitely. Why won't it let me add you as a contact?
I think it's sending as a Google link. But back to what we are talking about with AI being socially conscious. It should be, for sure. It should definitely be socially conscious. Only due to the fact of if we're gonna allow the systems to basically take over the
But
task of things that we kind of don't want to do or may help us do it better.
so you're saying socially conscious, but not socially aware.
Maybe I think the social awareness is like the part where it becomes really human.
Hmm.
It becomes really human, and that's where it's like
Versus it just being aware that I'm human. And
yeah,
yeah, okay.
because if we want to be able to still distinguish from person and machine, where do we draw the line?
Right. No, I agree. Why are we drawing? Well, that's a different conversation. I was like, why are we drawing lines? Like,
We should go as far as it could take us to be able to create as much as possible. Which part of me is curious. Like, why would we stop if we can actually get to that point? Like, I'm waiting for teleportation to become the new technology so I don't have to drive. Okay. Like, once we get that, I feel like I've reached my peak in the technology advances that I need. But we'll get there one day. I'm pretty sure it may be 1,000 years from now, maybe. But
mhm.
at the rate we're going with like all the different technological possibilities,
I think it'll be sooner than that. Yeah,
if
I wouldn't
it
even give it
happens,
100.
it would be great if it happens in this lifetime. Well,
Oh yeah, it'd be
in my
amazing.
lifetime.
I mean, I feel like cars, like electric cars, are going to be the norm here in like less than 20, 30 years. They're going to be the norm.
I was wondering, did they go through with like certain laws to implement those? Because I don't remember, but
So they
I'm for
accepted
sure.
Tesla's like charging network or charging
Hmm.
standard as the North America charging standard or
Hmm.
NACS. So and after they did that, all of these legacy automobile, you know, conglomerates or whatever, are now adopting Tesla's NACS standard. So starting January 1st, your Ford Raptor or your Toyota Prius will be able to charge at a Tesla supercharger.
Okay, because I was just like, I do see more. Like I'm in an area where it's still rare to find charging stations. So, but
Mm-hmm.
as you drive closer to the city, you do see more Tesla charging stations versus regular EV charging.
Do you have the app on your phone? I think it's Charge Point or Plug Share. They'll list all the local charging stations to you, whether they're
Of
Tesla
course
or
not.
not.
I'm not an EV driver, so I do
Uh,
not have it.
well, you'll have a lot more options than Tesla starting January, since everybody will be able to charge at Tesla chargers. It's just that Tesla's going to be known as like the EV, like well, I'm gonna say the luxury EV. Really, Priuses are the EV. Like they were
I
the
was
first.
just like, Tesla wasn't even the first to do EV, but they they are up there when it
They were
comes
the first to
to
do it right. It's like you got
yeah.
Nokia, then you got Apple, and I like Apple.
And they Nokia walk. Well, what is it? They crawled so Apple could walk, or walk and so Apple could run. One of those phrases or whatever. But I'm still an Android girl, so I don't even.
She
I
was
can't
like, that does
even.
not concern me.
But I do think that as we go through 5 years from now, it's gonna be crazy.
Hmm. Oh yeah, they just released the Cybertruck. Like, come on, man. Like, which
Is
is
it not?
crazier? Which is crazier because it was actually announced 5 years ago. They're just now delivering the orders that were placed 5 years ago. So like, it was a
Didn't
concept. But yeah, it was a concept 5 years ago,
okay.
and now it's actually in production,
Reality.
and you can
Yeah.
order one. Yeah. So it's like, what's the Cybertruck that's being developed now? Like, what's that IP that's being developed now that's going to be available 5 years from now?
And I feel like there's a way to like look into it some more. I just saw something pop up on LinkedIn about how some companies have come together to form an AI alliance where they're looking at ways to collaborate to have advanced and safe, responsible AI technologies out in public.
Hmm.
So
They're
this
trying
is
to regulate
between yes. I do
because
feel like
they
it's
have like a
regulate or have a monopoly over the AI technology. That's sometimes what I go between with my thoughts on
don't
it.
they have like a committee that like does like the essentially like the litigation for the internet, like in terms of
Yes.
what sites get blacklisted, what's acceptable for the general public, stuff like that.
I know there's some organizations or something that do. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yes, for sure there is. But there are like a bunch of companies in this AI alliance, and I'll make sure to like add the link in the show notes too. But like
Mm.
IBM, Meta, A Star, AI Tomatic, I think that's how you pronounce it. AMD. Shoot, they got universities in here. Like they got Cornell, Dartmouth. Shoot, it's going to be a lot of development in this space. They even got the University of Tokyo up in here. Sony, they got Sony up in here. ServiceNow's in there. Red
And
Hat.
as another point, I think we should pan out. For like just for like we're only looking at technology here. We haven't even touched on like what other countries are doing. Like
You know what? You're so right.
I know in Japan it's crazy.
It has to be. They've
It has
always
to
been
be.
so advanced with technology
Yes.
that is surreal. We have had a lot of time to talk. This is so crazy when you see it in person.
hmm
I want to see this Sophia robot in person. Like her, they try to make her
You want to
facial
ask? You want to
expressions
ask her
so
a question?
yes. I don't even know what I'd ask, but I just like the way they make her facial expressions like look. They try to get as realistic as possible,
hmm
and I know for sure there's like other robots that they've made with this kind of similar layout where the facial features look real and the way you move and interact is all how a normal person would be. It may not be as smooth, but the more they go through learning how to do it, the quicker it does.
But at the same time, can it be more human than us since it's being programmed?
Mm.
Because like you could program it to like mix emotions or like mix experiences that probably wouldn't normally happen in the span of someone's life. But I don't know. It's like you can engineer an experience almost. Like it's crazy.
Mhm.
Which is why you should get into tech.
Be on the opposite end of, at least be on the back end side of it where you get to see it before it's
Be
really
on the
released. The
right, the
inside.
educated side of it.
Yeah. We gotta wrap it up. You wanna wrap up the podcast? I was like, I have so many articles that we gotta add it to the show notes.
Yeah, we do have a lot. How do you want to wrap it? Well, we'll call it a time. We
Yeah.
appreciate everybody listening to this episode on our iteration of AI and what it means to us. As we know it, also ironically, I think last week was MIT's Generative AI Week. So they did a bunch of different themes and symposiums on AI. So we'll also add that to the show notes. There's a piece on there that I personally like. But yeah, thank you guys for listening and hope you have a great day.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform that you live listening to on, and be sure to give us a rating too. We'll see you next time.